Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. So this is my third out of 4 videos for human trafficking, and today I'll be talking about illegal adoption. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and yeah, if you have anything to add about this particular topic, please do so in the comment section below. And yeah, let's get straight into the video. So trafficking for illegal adoption targets children, and obviously the children will be more from poorer countries, and then the parents who want to adopt will be from wealthier parts of the world. So illegal adoption violates the child's rights, norms, and principles, and it doesn't go it goes against the best interest of the child, obviously. And most agencies or people who are involved in the process of adoption, they just do that as a means of financial gain. So as much as they'll make it seem like they're doing a good thing for the child, they're finding a home for the child, for them it's merely about the money. The child is not really that important, and that's why the problem comes, or the principles are breached, when it's more about finding a child for the parents rather than finding a suitable home for the child, because the child is like the important factor. Like they must be placed in the right environment. You can't just take a child and give them to any parent, so the parents are not they don't come before the child, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it. Like, the child is important, their needs are more important, because you have to place them in a environment that will be okay for them. So the 2019 report of End Child Prostitution, Child Pornography, and Trafficking of Children for Sexual Purposes identified South Africa as the hub for child trafficking. So inter-country adoption has decreased globally due to some factors like economic and political factors, the fear of trafficking, cultural concerns, because you take a child from one country to another, so it's a whole cultural scare for them, allegations of forced adoptions, and there are a couple of anti-adoption lobbies that are going around. So adoption is like a life-saving solution for children who can't be raised by their families, or they are disabled, abandoned, or older children. So there are anti-traffic groups that don't really vouch for inter-country adoption because of the following reasons. One, these adoptions are undertaken by agencies that just want money. They, like I mentioned, their aim is not the best interest of the child. They are just motivated by financial gain. So these agencies are then a front for child trafficking, and then they place like loved or wanted children. They place those children in very unstable environments, or they don't even know where the children end up, some of them. They're also driven by supply and demand. So in the Western world, where maybe infertility rates are growing, then they come to poorer countries, and then they take children from those poorer countries to take them there, because there's a high demand there, and then in the poorer countries there's a lot of vulnerability, and then they can get a lot of children illegally. Another thing is that adoption separates families, and inter-country adoption actually is a violation against both the child and the child's community's human rights. And in some instances, the way in which the child is obtained, right, is illegal. So maybe the parents didn't even know that they're giving their child up for adoption. They didn't even want to give their child up for adoption, or maybe the child comes from an orphanage or something like that. The way in which the child is obtained is illegal, but then the agency makes it look legitimate. So they'll have all the papers and everything for the parents that are receiving the child. They'll make it look very legitimate. So some parents don't even know the truth, like the adoptive parents, because the adoption facilities will like falsify all the child's information, the child's name, age, where they come from. They'll falsify everything. And then also, if the child is from an orphanage, they will not take the proceeds of that adoption to the orphanage. That's the other tricky part. So changes are just basically made to the child's identity, so the people receiving the child don't even suspect anything, and they just think everything's okay. And also the adoption fees are the ones that motivate orphanages, especially. Like sometimes the orphanage itself will hire kidnappers just so they can make it look like the child has been kidnapped, because obviously the kidnappers or whoever wants the child will probably pay the orphanage. So people go through extreme lengths for money. So essentially there should be licensed intermediaries and accredited bodies who like make sure that the adoption process goes well, and this should happen in every region, in every country. So the higher the amount that the parents or whoever wants, the more illegal adoption will continue, because the money will always motivate the agencies or these facilities that are going through with these adoption processes. So where do these children come from? Where do you get the children? Like, how does this whole cycle go on? So the children can be found on websites. So allegedly, apparently, in South Africa, there was a woman who put her child up for sale on Gumtree. So yeah. So there's also abduction. The child can be abducted. Homeless parents, their situation, their vulnerabilities can be used against them or taken advantage of. Parents are offered money in exchange for their children. Parents are deceived. They don't give the consent to for their child to be adopted. They are threatened, or they give the child up through coercion. And then some people will put their children up for adoption to pay debt. It's just a whole lot of corruption, essentially. And then also another big thing is there are women in childbearing ages who are forced to get pregnant, and then after that they are forced to give up the children. They're forced to give the children up for sale. So there are actually baby factories where these women are all put in one place, and then they're impregnated, and then at the end of it they have to give the baby up for adoption or for sale. So human trafficking is a very vicious cycle, because children are sold illegally to adoptive parents, for child labor, for organ harvesting, prostitution, or ritual purposes. So child trafficking feeds into sex trafficking, feeds into child labor. It's a whole vicious cycle, really. So these children are found in negligent institutional facilities, because the people who are supposed to be caring for these children, like orphanages, then participate in the trafficking of the children. So also places like employers or exploiters or whoever is exploiting these parents take advantage of the parents and their situations. Children that are found on the street, child-headed households where there is no parent, there is no adult, so it's easier for the trafficker to infiltrate the home. And also juvenile detentions, because maybe the child doesn't have family support or something like that, so it's very easy to manipulate those children as well. So also illegal adoption can be used to conceal incest or rape. So if you don't know what incest is, it's basically like sexual activities within the family. So say a brother impregnates their sister. So to conceal that, then they'll just give the baby up for adoption, because maybe they're trying to hide the fact that the brother is the father of the child, because the child will look like the brother. But yeah, it's used to conceal incest and rape. It's also used as a means for discrimination and devaluation of women. Like I mentioned, there are baby factories where women literally are used to make babies, and then those babies are sold or given or taken wherever, and that's just what the women are there for, just to make babies, and that's it. And then instances of wars, large outbreaks of diseases or natural disasters. In those instances, when the children are left distraught, like they have nowhere to go, there's no family that they can go home to, then traffickers also take advantage of that. Obviously poverty, because if you can offer the parents money for their child, money plays a big role. Childlessness, because as long as there's somebody out there without a child who is looking to adopt a child, who's looking for a child, there'll always be traffickers in the system somewhere trying to, give the childless people children. And like I said, some of these childless people don't know that the child was trafficked. They are also under the guise that it has been done legitimately, and yeah. And also there's a lack of ethical behavior from the professionals, like the adoption agencies or the adoptive facilities who are supposed to be caring for the child or doing what's best for the child, are then doing it for the money and not for the goodness of the bigger picture. And last and not least is greed, obviously, because that's all human trafficking is about. It's a humongous cycle of how can we make money using people. Some preventative measures include legalizing adoptions and criminalizing illegal adoption, obviously to the point where the sanction or the penalty or punishment makes sense with the crime. Like the punishment is as serious as the crime was. Reviewing national laws to ensure that they do not contribute to the creation or maintenance of the enabling environment of illegal adoption, and investing more in effective national child protection systems by increasing support to vulnerable families and providing alternative childcare, in which adoptions serve the best interest of the child. Establishing and implementing single processes for the adoption, making sure that there's a holistic assessment for the child's full range of rights, and prohibiting private or independent adoptions, because they're in the private. That's where there's not a lot of eyes, and everything can just be done by this one company or this one agency, or like people can just do things behind closed doors. That's where the tricks start. And also adequate regulation on procedures and safeguard in relation to domestic and inter-country adoptions. So you must determine the child's adoptability, establish effective mechanisms for overseeing adoption processes, and verify every child's background who's declared an orphan. And then there must the concerns of the adoptees, the adopting parents, and the biological parents should be addressed. If somebody needs to be paid, they should be paid. If somebody has questions, those questions should be answered. Reform institutions that were either involved in or incapable of preventing abuses, and also guarantee an effective and meaningful participation of victims, where the victims can be involved in the implementation of measures that can be used to redress this illegal adoption problem. And lastly, there should be an effective measures to protect children who are victims of armed conflict and natural disasters from becoming victims. So I think not only children of armed conflict, but like vulnerable children in general, there should be measures to protect them from becoming victims. And that is all I have on human trafficking for illegal adoptions. I hope you guys learned a thing or two. I hope it was interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have anything, like I said in the beginning, please hit me up in the comments. And if you are planning on adopting, or you were interested in it, thinking about it or whatever, now you know that you should do your due diligence and do all the research that you can, and just make sure that everything is legitimate. And I will see you guys in the next video.